morning. We are going to go ahead and take our notes on 3.4. This is preventing destructive and aggressive behavior. So, as we said the other day in our notes, aggression is one of those reasons that owners tend to get rid of their pets. And this aggression can come in many different shapes, sizes, and forms. It's not just the growling. It's not just when we think about being mean. Okay, there's other types of behaviors that we would still fall in under aggression. Okay, so here we have, how many of you guys have walked home? You've walked into a room and your animal has torn apart your cushions or a friend's, and you've seen this scene before. Maybe it's not your actual couch, but maybe it's their dog bed or their toy. So when we're talking about destructive behaviors, when we often look at this, we're just like, oh my gosh, the animal destroyed the couch. Can't believe it. That's horrible. So we often view the result of the behavior, right? So this animal, the behavior was that clawing of the furniture. So we see the results of it. We see the outcome. We see the destruction. We never really, or not never, I shouldn't say, but some of us don't ever really think of the why. Like, what was it in that animal's life? Like, not life, but what was it in that instance that caused that animal to destroy the couch? Okay, so why did it do that? It's not like, oh, I'm just sitting around bored, right? This is where we have to get away from that anthropomorphizing of it, because it's just like, oh, the animal is just bored and it's mad at me, so it's going to take it out and it's going to tear up my couch. And it's that motivation's not necessarily the why it happened, okay? So what we really want to think about is the outcome of the behavior, but what could have caused it? Why did the animal do that? So you come home and your animal is eating your favorite pair of shoes. Well, you just get a puppy. What do puppies do the first few months? They teeth, right? They need something to chew on. And your shoes are amazing. They've got rubber on them. They've got cloth on them. They've got plastic on them. They have like a rope stringy cotton thing on them. So your shoes have all of these different textures all rolled into one object. Oh my gosh, that would be the most fun thing to chew on. So the animal didn't just chew your shoe because it was a $500 shoe. It chewed your shoe because it's teething and it needs to feel those textures in its mouth to satisfy the gum pain, right? Because it's teething. Another thing is going to be that couch. You may have cats, you may have dogs, and the cat needs to be able to stretch out its paws. It needs to go and it needs to be able to flex out. And when it does that, its talons, its nails are going to get into the cushions. So you are going to see some of that. So the big question with destructive behavior is we want to prevent it, right? We talked about preventing a behavior is going to be much easier than correcting the behavior, right? So in order to be able to prevent, we really need to provide an appropriate substitution to address the why is this happening. If your animal is eating your shoes, why? Is it eating your shoes because it's teething? Well, if it's teething, then what can you replace that with, right? What can I substitute this lovely shoe with instead of, yeah? So what could you give instead of the shoe? All right, here we have our cat. Our cat likes to scratch. What do we give it? Give it cardboard. It will be able to scratch at that cardboard. There's a few different reasons why cats do scratch. One of which is to mark their territory. So within their paws, they've got scent glands that they're able to, when they scratch, they're marking their territory with their scent, and so it's leaving it in those grooves. They also are stretching. Many of you guys, when you wake up in the morning, you just go, right? Big stretch. You have to stretch your muscles. You have to get some exercise in that. So they are stretching to be able to stretch their muscles. And then on their nails, if you've ever seen cats' nails, you'll see that they are actually, they're super sharp, right? So they're curved, they're talons. They have an outer sheath to them, so their nails almost kind of shed from the outside. So what they do is when they're scratching, they're trying to remove that that outer layer of their nails. When we trim cat nails, you will see that kind of slough off, almost like a layer of a paper. Okay, so they're scratching to sharpen their claws to remove that outer sheath of their nail bed. So if you have your animals that are going to be stretching, right, and scratching, one of the best things to do is to give them a scratching post. Everybody and anybody who has a cat should have some sort of scratching post at their house. It again it's a natural instinct, it's a natural behavior, and for cats to scratch things. They're not doing it because they're like, oh, I'm mad, I'm going to scratch at you. They are doing it because of those 3 reasons we just talked about. So when you're getting a scratching post, you can't just go to the Walmart or the Target or like go on Chewy and be like, oh, it's a scratching post, woohoo, I'm going to buy it. You have to think about a few things, okay? One of the first things that we have to think about is the height. Well, how tall is your cat? One, right? Like how big is the cat? And so how tall is the tree that you're going to get? You want to make sure that it's tall enough that your cat can put its paws and stretch upward. So if you have a cat, like a Maine Coon, that's 25, 35-pound cat that's going to be able to stand on its hind legs and be 4 feet tall, then you need to get a tall cat tree. One of those little nubbin of a cat tree, that's not going to help your cat because it's not going to be tall enough, right? The cat needs to be able to stretch up really nice and high. Also, you have to make sure that if you have a cat that's heavy, the scratching post needs to be able to hold that cat's weight. You'll see some scratching posts, I wish it was close to me, where you have like the pole and then you have a platform, right? Well, if your cat is double the size of that platform, that's going to fall over. So you really need to make sure you've got a sturdy one, that it's going to hold the cat's weight and that the cat's going to be able to jump to it. Now, when we talk about orientation, I'm not talking about what other kind of cats the cat likes. I'm talking about how it's oriented in relation to the ground. So is your post going to be vertical or is your cat tree going to be horizontal? Again, some cats will really like to go and they stretch up, right? And maybe you guys, when you stretch up. Maybe some of you'd prefer to be able to stretch out, right? And you kind of do that like big stretch out and then maybe the stretch back. So cats are the same thing. Some of them like to stretch up. Some of them like to stretch out. So if you have a cat that likes to stretch out, you might need to get 2 cat trees together. Or you get those really cool elongated cardboard scratchers, and then that will help, right? Because then the cat is going to be able to scratch outwards. So that orientation is important. Am I needing a post that's going to be really high to scratch because that's how my cat likes to go up? Or do I need something that's going to be long and flat? So my cat, almost like a child's pose, right, for yoga, where you're just like, whoa, you have to think about that. Next thing is texture. So I want you guys to imagine or remember a time that you've walked around outside or even in your own house barefoot, right? No socks, no shoes, walking around. When you go to different substrates, when you go to different material, it feels different in your toes. Or how many of you guys have made cookies or made bread and your hands, you need to knead that, or you've played with the slime or oobleck or anything, right? Like sticky. So there's different textures. Well, depending on what the cat is going for and the cat's preferences, those textures are going to be also super important, right? Maybe the cat wants to go into carpet because that carpet is very satisfying because it's kind of fuzzy and it's got it goes into all between all the little toes beds, and maybe the cat really, that satisfies that cat's craving for when it's kneading. That cardboard is super easy to shredded. So maybe that's helped to satisfy sharpening the claws because it's going to be easy to shred. But then you'll see trees with rope. You'll even see trees that have, like this one, with the wooden beam as well because they can scratch into that wooden beam. The rope can help them climb, right, because they can dig into it and it's not going to shred easily. So you have to think about the texture. Just like you and I, when we walk on different things with our toes and our feet, we prefer different types of textures underneath that. Same thing with cat. You need variety. So variety is absolutely the spice of life, especially with scratching posts. And then I want to think about location. If my cat is scratching the back of my couch, then maybe I want to put my cat, like the scratching post, behind the couch. If my cat is scratching and like laying in my windowsill in the bedroom and scratching the windowsill in the bedroom and just always there, maybe that's why I want to put the scratching post. If I put the scratching post in the living room, but the cat's destroying my bedroom, that's not going to help you, right? Because there's something about that location. So you really do need to make sure that you're watching where you're putting that scratching post. Put it where the cat likes to go. Where's the cat spending a lot of time? You can see this scratching post is in a window, so the cat can get into the sun. Cats love sunlight, right? And love basking in the warm glow. So put it near a window, and then they can see all the birds and whatnot. So, but if your cat doesn't like the window, then don't put it near the window, right? Like put it wherever that cat is. That way it's going to be an easier introduction for your scratching post, because the cat's going to look at it and first be like, what am I supposed to do with that? Especially if you just put it somewhere the cat never goes. The cat never goes in the kitchen, is never going to use a scratching post. So just make sure you pay very close attention to that location of where you're putting that post as well. All right. So what I want you guys to do is, we have a lovely room here. I want you to go ahead and design a room for 2 cats. So the Siamese enjoys elongated stretches and kneading his claws, while the domestic long hair enjoys climbing and vertical stretching. So I want you to include everything that you're going to need to limit their destructive behavior. So scratching posts, we talked the other day about litter boxes, think about food, think about water. I want you to design a room for cats. It's going to be a cat leisure area. All right, so that's all about cats. Now we're going to talk about a little bit about dogs, but this also goes into cat destructive behavior as well. So what's causing the behaviors? Because again, there's a purpose, there's a reason, there's something behind the behavior with our animals, okay? They're doing it on a purpose. Some of it is self-rewarding. Some of it is just like you and I, right? Where we're like, oh, I want a pop. I'm going to go get a pop. Cool, I got a pop. Or, right, so it's just like that instant gratification. So absolutely, your animals enjoy certain things, right? They definitely do. There's certain toys that are always their favorite. So causes of various behaviors we absolutely have. Some of them are self-rewarding. But many behaviors, there's going to be some sort of underlying cause for that behavior. So cats that urinate out of the litter box, that is a behavior we don't like, right? That's destructive. It's soiling outside of his box. It's messing the house, right? So it's either urinating or defecating, or either both outside of the litter box. And you're keeping it clean. You have 6 litter boxes, 2 cats, you're fine. Everything's clean all the time, but they're still doing it. So that oftentimes, if your animal, especially with cats, is not urinating in its box, that's where it wants to go. So if it's, and even dogs, right? They're not going outside and they're starting to go in the house, and that's something that's new. There's generally something that is going on with your animal that is causing that to happen, okay? So underlying causes are huge and is a great indicator for us of if we need to seek medical attention. We could also have some developmental issues, or just not even development issues, but if I have a puppy, there's going to be chewing. It is just what they do. It's a puppy. It's learning. It's teething, right? If you have a little niece or a little nephew, like they start biting on everything when they're teething. You guys have growing pains, and that can cause behaviors and like just uncomfortableness, right? So we have behaviors that are due to developmental. If you have animals that are coming into heat or coming into their sexual maturity, behaviors are going to change. Male dogs, if they're not castrated or not neutered, do become more aggressive. So there are things that developmentally happen, or behaviors because of those developmental changes, and that we have to be aware of those things. So self-rewarding behaviors, I think we can think about those. You may have all seen that cat video where the cat is just like, boom. You put something on the counter, it's like, poof. You put something else up there, it's like, poof, and it breaks everything, right? So that might be self-rewarding. That is like, I get to watch it fall, it falls, boom. There's something fun about swatting it, and then it goes. Digging, texture again, right? So maybe that dog just really enjoys that texture of the soil in the claws. And I remember my dog started digging, and she would like freak out and like be like, what happened? What's hitting me in the back of my leg? She didn't understand. Maybe she did, but the soil, and maybe she liked that the soil would hit her. I don't know. Chewing can be rewarding. How many of you you feel like chewing on something, right? So you grab a carrot. So chewing can be a rewarding behavior. Tearing things up, that is an instinctual behavior for our dogs, right? To tear. Scratching for our cats is very self-rewarding. Again, those moving the objects. Trash diving. What are we going to find in the trash today? My dog never used to dive in the trash. All of a sudden, she like turned 7. Don't know what it was. She started diving in the trash, had to move it all up. So you never know what you find in the trash. So those can be some different self-rewarding behaviors. Now, these might be a little bit more difficult to try to prevent or to try to figure out what you want to switch out, right? The other type of behavior we talk about, right, are those underlying causes. So separation anxiety will absolutely cause some aggressive or some destructive behaviors. I came home the other day after being at work for 12 hours, and my dog had jumped up on the counter and gotten like baby wipes, like the little wet wipes, and ate them. So I was gone for too long. There's definitely separation anxiety there. Noise phobia. Those of you that have animals that with fireworks or even like fire sirens going off, where sometimes the animals go hide, sometimes the animals bark a whole bunch and just can't stop barking. Other times, my aunt had a dog that it would dig at the door and almost make its like paws bleed because it was trying to scratch to get out when the fireworks were going on. So there are some different underlying causes again, and we could have some medical issues as well. And then developmental. So make sure, guys, for number 2, do add medical issues, because there could be, again, some health things. So underlying causes, separation anxiety, noise phobia, medical condition. All right, so then we have the developmental. I think we've seen this puppy chewing on the slipper a lot. So we understand that chewing can definitely be developmental, right? I'm teething. Being able to play. When you get puppies, they're learning how to socialize. When you get kittens, they're learning how to socialize. Kittens are notorious biters, and they scratch, because that's what kittens do. They're developing. They're learning their environment. They're figuring things out. They're also investigating. Yeah, they're little kids. Again, Miss Leslie, don't anthropomorphize the animals, right? Here, what am I doing? But they do investigate their surroundings. They're curious creatures. They want to see what's going on, so they're going to look at stuff. They're going to nose around. Maybe the dog is going to nose at the plant, and then it sees that there's dirt in the planter that you have in the middle of your house on the floor, and so it's going to eat that. It's investigating. It's figuring things out. Okay, so you do want to keep in mind that some behaviors are 1, self-rewarding. 2, there's underlying causes for the behaviors. Or 3, it's a developmental thing. So due to the development of the animal, it's having this behavior. So what I want you to do in this scene is we have numbers 1, 2, and 3. I want you to drag the number to the action that you believe is associated with what caused that behavior. So if you see a behavior that you think was self-rewarding, you're going to put a number 1. If you see a behavior that you believe as an underlying cause, you're going to put a number 2. And then if you see a behavior that you believe is associated with development, then you're going to put a number 3. Okay, so go ahead and put the number to which cause of the behavior you feel happened. All right, next, this is just a splattering. We talk about being able to, well, we will, to punish it, not punish, well, yeah, punish the behavior, right? Because we want to diminish it. We want the behavior to go away. So we want to use toys as deterrents whenever we can. So Miss Alessi prescribes to the positive reinforcement and the negative punishment. So I'm very much a proponent of be positive with your animal. I do not, no longer, I used to do dominance training with my dog, and then I realized it did not work with her. So I'm all about the positives, all about rewards and switching things out. So I am one of those, like that modification behavior of switching. I'll do that all the time with my animal. So you want to reward it when a toy is played with, right? So if your animal chews everything and you give it a toy and it starts to chew the toy, give it a treat. Let it know it's doing well. Using toys is going to be great if that's what your preferred response is. So when you have puppies or even cats that go to bite, have a toy with you and just pop it in its mouth instead, right? So just move your body away and then put the toy in its mouth, and then it'll start to learn that it's not supposed to bite you, but here's an appropriate thing to bite. Shaking, chewing, tearing, these toys, you want to elicit that. You want to make sure, like, hey, if my dog likes to shake, my dog likes to chew, I'm going to give it a toy that it can shake and it can chew. So you can see in these boxes, the top is like all the soft, chewy stuff and the things that can be torn. I think that was a Jabba the Hutt, that little green weird thing with the giant hole in it. Yeah, she destroyed that in 2 seconds. The bottom is all nice hard stuff. So if your animal likes to chew, right, then getting variety of textures to chew on is great. Don't pay any attention to all the antlers in there. I do have a pit mix, and she has very powerful jaws. I would not recommend antlers to tiny dogs because they can absolutely break the teeth. So they can even break the teeth on big dogs. So don't mind the antlers. I do not recommend that for a variety of different types of dogs. Make sure that you do take away unacceptable items and replace them with a toy. So if your puppy comes running down the stairs with your slipper, or your ferret steals your shoes like the ferrets like to do, give them something else that is appropriate for them to do that with. So if you see them with a shoe, grab something else, give them a toy, so you can swap out those things. Again, that's going to start to teach the animal what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. You can also booby trap things or utilize scents to discourage behaviors. So you can figure out, they have different noise kind of things that only the dogs can hear for pitches. Cats, they have different pheromones. You can use, if you're a proponent of like the electric shock collar stuff, they have those. They also have cool collars that spray citronella, and so it doesn't hurt the animal. The animal doesn't like the smell, and so you can use that too. So there's a few different things that you can work with. Toys, if an animal needs to be stimulated, hide food in toys. The puzzle feeders are amazing things, and that will absolutely keep your animal occupied for a while. All right, so the self-rewarding behavior, the digging. Yeah. So digging, a few different things you can do to help an animal with that. If you're able to, and you have a large enough yard, you can try to like provide a spot for the animal in your yard to dig. So maybe this is a sand pit, maybe it's loose dirt, maybe it's just a box. You can bury things in there to teach them that that's where they should be digging, and then they know, and then it's really fun for them. So that can be something that you can do. Even in the house, like if you have a cat that likes to shred stuff, maybe you take a box and you put shredded paper in it, and then that's its spot that it can shred in. Some animals will dig into the cushions, right? So try to give it a spot instead of digging in the cushions. My dog will dig into her dog bed. Like, she knows it's okay to dig in her dog bed. So again, that's because I've provided different spots for her, and I've kind of exchanged things out. So if your animal is digging in the couch, take your animal, if you're able to, and like put it in the dog bed, and then it can dig in that. So again, it's providing alternative settings. All right, and we have some different types of aggression. You guys will be responsible for knowing these types of aggression and then what causes them. And we have a Quizlet set here, so it's adding those types of aggression. So in your notes, you can write these down. If you don't want to have them in your notes specifically, then play the Quizlets, but I would recommend writing them in your notes. So your left hand would be conflict related and then the definition. So conflict related aggression is absolutely what you think about. It's going to be unpredictable environment or inconsistent or inappropriate use of a punishment. So if you're continuing to try to beat your dog, to be like, I'm going to beat you and you're going to listen to me, your dog eventually, depending on, is going to fight back. It may, right? Personality of the animal. It may. Cats too, like if they're in a conflict, they may lash out. You also have fear-induced aggression, so fearful situations. These are your animals that are in the veterinary office. They may not be aggressive, right, when you think of stereotypical mean dogs, but they get into the vet's office and they get very scared. Your fear-induced aggression is your more unpredictable aggression because you're not quite sure when it's going to happen. We are absolutely seeing dogs in the clinics now that have far more anxiety and far more fear. So it's definitely, we have to be very cautious and very watchful. Remember when we looked at those body language pictures? This is really where we're using that, information to help guide us. You have the predatory or instinctual and pouncing, and with your cats especially. With cats, so dogs are super like domesticated, right? They're man's best friend, yada yada blah. You can they're just adorable. They are dogs. Cats, on the other hand, we encourage cats to be aggressive. We encourage cats to continue their hunting behavior. We play with them with laser pens. We give them mice to chase. So we still encourage that behavior. Some of you will have an outdoor cat, or we have the barn cats. So there is that predatory behavior with them. So they're going to pounce. You have had stories possibly of Zeus, our attack cat in the classroom. Zeus, he just is instinctual. He would be a predator. Every once in a while, he would just lash out and jump and bite. I don't know. But it's just, again, it's instinctual, that predatory behavior. Pain-induced aggression. So again, if your animal is in pain and you touch it, it may lash out at you. This may be an animal that, like, oh, my Fluffy would never do that. But you touch Fluffy, Fluffy tries to bite you because you didn't know Fluffy had a giant mass in its abdomen, and that was ouchy, okay? We have what's called intermale aggression. So this is our natural instinct of those males when they have not been castrated. So your male animals are more aggressive. They tend to be because of the testosterone levels. That testosterone does increase aggression. So you do have intermale aggression with those animals that have not been fixed or have not been neutered. Of course, many of you are probably aware of territorial aggression. With our dogs, this is usually directed toward humans that are not members of the household, but it can be directed toward members of the household if your dog is territorial or protective over one specific person. This territorial aggression happens very often in our exotic birds because they tend to turn into one human pets where they prefer the one human in the household. Cats, it's going to territorial-wise is usually directed to another cat. So if you have a cat and you try to bring another cat in that house, does not always work. A lot of times humans are like, oh, I'm going to get a pet for my pet because my pet's alone all day. Your cat appreciates being alone all day more than likely. It does not want another cat in its place. It's very territorial, right? They're solitary creatures. So that is going to be some of your animals territorial-wise will lash out at humans. Some will lash out at other animals. And then, of course, you have maternal aggression. So that's going to be our females, right, who have just given birth. They are going to be more aggressive. You may be like, oh my God, my fluffy Susie Q doesn't want me to pet her anymore because she's got a whole bunch of kittens nursing. Well, yeah, she's not going to want you petting. She got a whole bunch of kittens nursing, right? So she's going to be protective of that. That maternal instinct is going to click in. There's chemicals in your brain that as soon as you have babies, like just all changes in the pet. All right, so go through those. Make sure you play that Quizlet set. It also is going to include those behavior modifications as well that we talked about the other day. Okay, and here again is that list of modifications programs. So just in case you were wondering, yeah, they're important, right? This is the second time we've seen them. want you guys to go ahead and make connections. So we talked about behavior modification techniques the other day, as well as a little bit today. And then we're talking about aggression, right? And just decreasing those aggression behaviors. So this is table 6.2. This is table 6.3. I want you to make connections. So how are they connected? How can we relate them to each other? All right, and then go ahead, write your summary down, and enjoy the notes. Remember to use these on your test, and your test will be on the 20th.